Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. This is episode 223. We are the Bella Lost Souls podcast. I'm joined now by Justin Troop and Chris Morgan.
All the Latin.
Laughing in gold.
And Ricky Addington.
I got nothing. I'm too excited for words right now.
We are here to talk about the Emperor's Legion, the Adeptus Custodes.
Boom.
The best space janitors ever.
Also, the worst bodyguards, if we want to go there.
Hey,
Look,
he's still technically alive.
They've been guarding that body like nobody's business. In the middle of this show, Chris and I have a segment we're going to do with Gav Thorpe. Very happy we got to talk to him about his upcoming book. We can talk about that in the middle part of the show, and then we'll come back and talk about some more Custodian stuff. The Army of Terra. That's the section that at the beginning of the Codex when we start getting to the rules. But first off, there's a pretty big section of background and section where they show off the models and whatever, and there are some beautiful new kits coming for this faction. I mean, you've seen them on the Warhammer community site. They've been posting up stratagems, pictures of the stratagems, pictures of some of the war gear, and the models themselves, and they are absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, GW had not sold enough Retributor armor spray, so they decided Custodes, and I think I've got like 2 cans on order already.
I mean, even out of the pot, that's a great color. That's become my go-to gold.
Yeah, that's
So
probably
good.
the best gold I've ever used.
It is so good. I was telling my wife the other day, I was telling her just how I used to hate painting it. I said, gold is now a treat. It's not punishment that, I want this piece gold. Like there's no longer that hatred of painting gold. It's so
blocking in metals is like one of my hobby chores, if I had to call it anything, but I never experienced that using the Retributor armor gold specifically. So the Army of Terra gets the abilities. The following abilities is common to all Adeptus Custodes. And I'm going to be honest with you, I may pronounce that word several different ways over the course of this episode.
You can guarantee it. Make a drinking game out of it.
But
folks.
what I've heard, we mentioned this before or whatever, is that anytime you see a word like this in the 40k space, you are supposed to pronounce every vowel. And if you do that, you're saying it the way that it's in the Warhammer world that way.
Latin is phonetic. Just go with it.
Models with the Aegis of the Emperor ability, which a lot of the troops have, a lot of the infantry models and stuff have a 5+ invulnerable save, just across the board. In addition, roll a d6 each time a model with this ability suffers a mortal wound in the psychic phase. On a 6, that mortal wound is ignored. So it's limited feel no pain, very specific to things like, it's not just smite, as we're going to see when the beta rules for smite get implemented across, to all events, but this is against any power that causes mortal wounds in the psychic phase.
Which is where 90% of mortal wounds are generated anyway. So it's nice that they did specify it there.
Yeah, a lot of trees,
that's where you need it.
Like the Death Guard and the Nurgle stuff has a bunch of mortal wounds. And we were talking about Rotigus doing his table-wide mortal wound before. You're going to see more and more, especially as people stop counting on smite to be their mortal wound generators. You're going to see more powers like that, and they are quite prevalent, if you ask me.
I think the culmination of all those things together is going to help these low model count armies really hang in there a lot better than at the same time last year. Well,
yeah.
Granted, we'll call it the beginning of 8th. The beginning of 8th.
I remember I was playing these guys as an index army, and I brought them to one of our local tournaments, and I loved playing them. They were super fun. And then smite spam. I got a taste of that from a Zinch army, and it was like, GW, just give me something, just some sort of chance to take it. And they came out with this, and I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. So
I'm going to go ahead and jump to the rules, and as right before you get to the stratagems, where it gives you your rules for if you commit to the army, or if you take just a full Custodes force. You get the abilities of the Emperor's Chosen, and this is going to be contextual to how we talk about some of the other units. So this unit's invulnerable save is improved by 1 to a maximum of 3+, and then you get the OBSEC, where you control objective markers even if you don't outnumber the model, the enemy. As long as they don't always also have that rule. Sorry.
Huge for them.
Yeah, the big deal about this, right, is it isn't just troops. This is all infantry and bikers. So that's your elites, that's your fast attacks, that's everybody.
Yeah, this is if your army is battle forged, all infantry and biker units in the Adeptus Custodes detachment gain these sworn guardians. That's the objective secure rule, and the Emperor's chosen ability, which is the +1 to invulnerable save to a maximum of 3+. So remember that when we start talking about the context of the units.
Yeah, that's a huge buff to these guys. Everybody's talking about the low model count and stuff like that, but there's so much in here that diversifies defensive mechanisms to counterbalance that, and you'll see that via stratagems and just rules and other stuff throughout the book. So this is one of the elite armies that you can really take a punch. Losing a guy still hurts, right? But it's going to be a lot harder to lose a guy, I feel like, with these guys.
You will feel it in your stomach when you put a model back in the box. Every
lower.
single one. Yeah,
it's a little lower than the stomach when you lose the one.
But
I'm just going to call it right now. This is going to be the best travel army ever.
Oh yeah. You're flying. You're playing Custodes.
Yeah, I see this more as a companion force. Like you're going to take these in addition to some of your other Imperium armies, and that's built into the Codex itself, and we'll get there. But there's going to be a lot of points wrapped up in what looks like a small footprint. I won't say a small package because these guys are giants on the battlefield and do tons of damage, but it's going to have a small footprint. So if you're going to have to really be almost like a chess match with your opponents if you're playing a full Custodes list with no other Imperial allies.
Yeah, I'm going to play pure Custodes though. Like, I know that is probably not the most efficient way, but
it might be. You're just going to have to really be really methodical and you're going to have to think a couple of moves ahead. That's it. I think that's the way to win with a full Custodes force, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I'm terrible at planning ahead for stuff, but these dudes are toughness 5.
Look good.
I'm going to look great doing it, and you wouldn't believe just what going up to T5, how much that saves you so many wounds, because you're just that tiny little bit harder to wound from basic infantry, and
a las cannon is now going to wound you on 3s.
Yeah. That's great. I
think it is great. And you're going to have a pretty much 4+ invulnerable save across the board. So,
yeah.
I mean, I do not want to short sell anything I just said. These guys are going to have an offensive and defensive capabilities, and we'll talk about it. So let's talk about right now the Captain General Trajan Valoris. This guy is they showed on their Facebook page when they hit 100,000 likes. Thank you for having 100,000 likes. Here's a preview of things to come. That's this guy. That's Captain General Trajan Valoris. He is also the guy with the lion on his shoulder. So if you remember that rumor engine to where it was the lion's face, it's this guy.
Yeah. So
it was a bit of a tease too.
Sorry,
the Archangels.
Ricky.
Yeah. You know how many that went up, and I got 15 people messages me like,
I was convinced.
Do it, dude. He's coming. And then I was like, oh, okay. No, it's not.
Before Dark Angels or Chaos jokes.
I did think it was a Dark Angel figure when they shot. I didn't think it was going to be the Al Johnson, but I thought it was going to be like a captain or a shoulder pad for the Talonmaster or whatever. Who knows? It wasn't. It's this guy.
This dude is insane.
I'm okay with it. I think we'll allow it.
Yeah, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to compare him to another face beater that we know and love, and that's Drago. And this guy, he has a movement of 6, weapon skill BS 2+, strength 5. This is his base stats before we get to his weapon. Toughness 5, 7 wounds, 5 attacks, leadership 10 with a 2+ save. And he has a 3+ invulnerable save.
Tank.
Y'all can't see me, but I got my hands up in the air waving them like I'm in the front pew of church right now. This guy is going to be fun.
He comes with a Watcher's Axe and the Misericordia, which is a dagger that each time the bearer fights, it can make one additional attack with this weapon unless it is also equipped with a Storm Shield. He doesn't need a Storm Shield because he has the Halo, which gives him a 3+ invulnerable save as well. And he has the Aegis of the Emperor. That's the rule that gives him +1 invulnerable up to a maximum of 3+. with the 6+ Feel No Pain versus Mortal Wounds in the Psyche phase.
So what you're saying is he's covered.
He is covered.
You can't get much more covered.
Yeah, anything that takes away his Halo, he's still going to have the 4+ invulnerable save.
God, he's bonkers.
Well, remember, 5+ plus the 1 for the being Battleforged. You get what I'm saying. Anytime we reference that better invulnerable save than what's on this page here, it's because it's a Custodes, in our mind, Battleforged army.
Well, you were talking about his axe, and then we're specifically comparing him to Drago, and I feel like his axe beats Drago's Titan Sword.
Well,
it does, right?
The Titan Sword's pretty good, and Drago's also a Psyker, so there is that. But the Watcher's axe has a shooting profile of range 24, rapid fire 1, strength 5, neg 1 AP, damage 2.
I like that. I mean, it's nice. It's not the best AP, but if it does go through, that's 2 damage. Like it.
The Watcher's axe in the melee profile is ×2 strength, so making this guy strength 10, neg 3 AP, and I believe Drago is
strength +4, neg 4 AP
neg 4
on
AP,
the Titan
right?
Sword.
So, yep. And then it does D3 damage, and I believe that's similar.
No, the Titan Sword is just flat 3.
Oh, well, there you go. I think what sets, or what potentially pushes things in Valoris's favor is that he has the Chapter Master ability. Also, you may reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1 made by friendly Adeptus Custodes units within 6 inches of him. But he has the Moment Shackle ability, and this is up on the community page 2, if I remember right. But once per battle, if Trajan Valoris is on the battlefield, you can do one of the following: regain D3 wounds lost by Trajan during this phase, but you can't do it if he's killed. So you'd have to do it before he gets to before he's on the way back to the box.
No ghost slaps.
Right. At the end of the fight phase, pile in an attack with Trajan Valoris an additional time. So his 5+1 attack from the dagger or the sword, more like a Gladius type thing or whatever, is giving him that's 12 attacks.
Yeah. So
that
Drago don't hit 12 times.
No, Drago does not hit 12 times. Regain up to D3 command points spent when you use a stratagem, but no more than were spent on the stratagem. And playing what is a potentially low detachment, low model count army, depending on how you build out your forces, and we'll talk about that when we get to the troop section here, you might not have a lot of command points, so getting some back might not be terrible.
Yeah, it could suck less.
Yeah, so I mean, again, we're comparing him to another, armor juggernaut being Drago, but I think they're very comparable, and he's 250 points.
Which is Drago's 270, right, Chris?
Pulling it up here. Yeah, he is 240.
Even better. So, point-wise, they're basically the same. Stat-wise, they're basically the same. Slight edge to the Titan Sword, unless you use the Moment Shackle, and then that's where I give the edge to the axe at that point. So you're going toe-to-toe with arguably one of the best beat sticks in the game. So he is now in the top 5 of number 1 assaulting just slayer dudes in the game, period, right now.
Yeah, I think non-Primarch stats, he's in the top 2-3 for sluggers, if you ask me.
Yeah, yeah, easily.
The only thing he's missing is just, more reliable large damage numbers on his weapon.
Well, with reroll wounds, I've never really thought about this. If you roll a 1 or a 2 on the D3, does that allow you to reroll that 1 or 2 to try to get a higher score?
No, because that's damage. Yeah,
only the 2 wound rolls itself.
Okay, so that sucks that's wasted on him.
But he has enough attacks, I think, to where it'll average out.
Yeah. Right, yeah. And you're hitting on, what, 90% of his attacks, really? 96%?
Hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, and he'll be wounding most things on 2s, rerolling 1s. Most infantry or even T5 stuff, right? He's going to be wounding that on 2s, rerolling 1s.
Yeah,
it's a bad day when he ain't going to cause some damage.
That's very strong. Yeah, but he can threaten almost anything because he is strength 10 with multiple damage. I mean, we compare about to a knight. He could do a lot of damage to a knight. He could add to your damage potential on things like Magnus or whatever. But he's good. I think he's good. And if you like taking the name characters, he's the only one in the book. But he's really good, and the model's cool too.
I feel like that feather's going to get in his eyes and it's going to make him sneeze.
I don't know. I don't ever sneeze out of my eyes, Ricky.
No, it's going to get in his eyes. It's going to blind him. That's what I was getting at.
Preternatural awareness. He doesn't. The feather can be whatever. He's got like a plume that goes on it. It's on his crest or whatever. And the model itself, the cloak goes together in 3 separate pieces. So when you're assembling this guy, be very careful and be mindful of that. That's my tip for this, because when you're painting the cloth, you don't want to be dealing with a crease or a gap or whatever. So just take extra care when you're putting that cloak together. The shield captain, that's the one of the other HQ choices, and you get I should say one of the others. That is the other HQ choice, but you get 3 different varieties of him. You can take him in the regular old Custodes armor. You hear what I said? Old.
I like that. That's a regular old. You're like that Custodes army is regular old.
Yeah, you can take him in the Allarus Terminator armor, or you can take him on the Dawn Eagle jet bike.
There's really not a bad choice there.
No, and when you put him in the Terminator armor or on the jet bike, he goes from 6 to 7 wounds.
Yeah, I like him on the bike.
The bike is not bad. I mean, going 14-inch movement with the option to get the Hurricane Bolters or the Salvo missile launcher.
Yeah, you're getting good shooting. If you keep the spear on him, you're basically hunting at that point with him. You have good mobility.
Well, you have to buy the spear, and that's his only weapon that he can get. It's called the Interceptor Lance.
Yeah,
the spear is costed separately. I thought it was free.
The spear is free. Yeah. If you get the option for the Interceptor Lance, the Lance is free.
Okay.
You have to buy the launcher though, or the Hurricane Bolter.
Yeah,
man, I have to buy a Hurricane Bolter.
Right.
Oh darn! I'm a fanboy of the Hurricane Bolter. Like the Ravenwing Dark Talon with those 2 Hurricane Bolters is my favorite Dark Angel
It's
unit.
reliable, especially when you're hitting on a 2+. What were you saying, Justin?
On 2s and re-rolling.
Well, this guy, he hits on 2s for both melee and ranged.
Yep.
He's got the mobility. He's strength 5. He's swinging 5 times. And with a Hurricane Bolter, this guy can go and hunt down units on his own. He's durable with the 7 wounds, the 2+ save. This dude is a truck for a relatively low amount of points. He's what I wish like a Thunderwolf Lord would be right now.
The shield captain on the Dawn Eagle jet bike has a base cost of 150 points.
Steal.
To keep him cheap, you could take the Hurricane Bolters, which are 10 points, or you can get the Salvo launchers, which are 25 points. You can get that sword, the Misericordia, for an extra 4 points, and that would take his attack characteristics from essentially a 5 to a 6. You get your 5 attacks with the Interceptor Lance, and then your one attack with that -2 AP damage 1 weapon.
164 points.
Pay those 4 points. I think you do that. I don't think there's a reason not to.
To Troop's point, it allows you to go out and do things like hunt other units with him really effectively.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Hurricane Bolters, what I like about him is if you're the character you're trying to get to, or the unit you're trying to get to has just got some chaff in front of it, well, delete the chaff and then do your charge.
Well, let's think about this also, is that we live in a world where there's all screening units are the regular. Like if you don't have screening units or something that you're probably making a mistake on tournament day. But with Hurricane Bolter, you can shoot at something else and then charge something else.
Yep, that's what I love about Hurricane Bolters. They will take cheap infantry off the table real quick.
And with him, his ability to rapid fire 6, so you're at 12 inches, which he's going to be getting within 12 because he has a 14-inch range on his movement, and fire 12 shots hitting on 2s. Now you're not re-rolling the wounds with him off by himself, but you're still getting a lot of hits. You could really hurt a 10-man unit of dudes, of human dudes, or whatever, or pink horrors in this case. I think we might see some.
Yeah. Anything with a 4+ save or worse is going to be feeling it.
Yeah, and then charge something else, and then throw out your 6 attacks.
Yeah, highly mobile, highly versatile, tough, strong. Can't go wrong. 164 points. You're talking one of the most point efficient HQs that you can take, that their sole job is to just get out there and crush it.
Give me 10 of them. That's mine.
Yeah. I like that he still wounds 7, so it's not like he's got like Dreadnought level of offense, if you ask me, reliable. But he doesn't have that Dreadnought wound characteristic.
Yeah. Paul, could you do me a favor real quick? The stats on the spear.
Yeah, the Interceptor Lance, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the Lance, I'm sorry.
It is
Thank you.
+1 strength, neg 3 AP, damage 3. You can reroll failed wound rolls with this weapon on a turn in which the bearer has made a successful charge.
Ugh, that's so good.
I was having to hold back a moan. I didn't want to be inappropriate, but golly.
Put this guy with like the Death Company captain. These guys are like
brutal.
Yeah, the dream team.
Based on some back and forth that Chris Morgan and I were having, I've affectionately named my Blood Angel captain Banginius.
Yeah, Banginius, Slamguinius, Smashguinius.
Can we take some suggestions?
But he will pair well with the shield captain on Don Eagle Jetbike. No kidding. So the next thing is the Custodian Guard.
Captain Lance and Banginius.
And that's the troop choice. This is your meat and potatoes of this. When I said the normal old Custodian Guard. Now, in this book, there are no Sisters of Silence or anything, so that was a question. And there are no Forge World entries in this book. Now, I did not expect Forge World entries in this book. I expect Forge World to publish Forge World entries in some type of index like they did for the rest of the stuff. It was hinted at. We have no information on this or whatever, but it was seemed to be strongly suggested that maybe Forge World would be, the Forge World Custodes stuff would be available eventually in 40k. It is not in this book, nor are Sisters of Silence. So the only troop choice that you get in this book are the Custodian Guard.
Which are no slouch still.
They are.
It's not like you got a bad choice there.
Well, remember too that with the flexibility, like a lot of us are still stuck in that mindset of like, I have to fill out my 4-star chart or whatever. Well, remember there's like 14 4-star charts and only a couple of them require you to take troops. So if that's not your thing, whatever.
Yeah, I think
this isn't a battalion army.
Well,
yeah,
I think it can be. I think it
can be a battalion army. It's not a brigade army, though.
Yeah. Now, and I full disclosure, while we were talking before the show, I did say that you probably wouldn't get a battalion out of it, but Chris definitely laid it out in very good way.
The Custodian Guard, their base points 40, so they're 40 points apiece. If you take the Guardian Spear, it's 12 points, so it's 52 points. And I think that is the preferred equipment, if you ask me. You could also take one of those 4-point swords if you want. But I think, maybe you want to, maybe you don't. Remember, it's just an extra attack with that weapon's profile. But for 52 points, with a minimum squad of 3, then you're, what is that?
156
points.
156 points for 3 dudes. Now, I know what you just said. That's 3 dudes, Paul. Well, they have 3 wounds apiece with a 2+ save and a bare naked 4+ invulnerable save.
And
OBSEC now, don't forget.
They've got the OBSEC. They're hitting on 2s in combat and shooting.
Yep.
With AP -1 bolt guns that do 2 damage each.
Yeah, rapid fire 1, strength 4, neg 1 AP, 2 damage.
And you can deep strike them with the stratagem.
Yeah. So with 156 points for 3 dudes, now that is 3 dudes, and I'm not saying take a 3-man squad, but I'm saying that it's possible to build one of these armies on a relative cheap. Now, like we just said, you take 2 of the Eagle Lancer guys, Dawn Eagle Jetbike shield captains, and 3 squads of these dudes, and you've got a potent force that you can add to almost anything, and net yourself 3 extra command points.
Yep.
Yeah, you're looking at 468 and then 164 twice. I'm not a mathematician by trade. Actually, I am.
Less than 1,000.
Like your job is all math.
It's like 9,000 points, but it's not. It's
so what Troop just said. The 3 troops and the 2 HQs. If you're doing Captain Lance, 2 Captain Lances, that's 796 points.
That's not bad.
No.
Can we name him Captain Lance?
The Grey Knight Force pending. Name pending.
That's Captain Lance.
Captain Lance works.
Captain
the Grey Knight Force that I've been taking is around that, and they have a lot less wounds. I think I'd rather have the 2 shield captains.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
But you do get the option, of course, taking the Storm Shield, which increases the invulnerable save to 3+. You do not get the benefit of the Aegis of the Emperor invulnerable buff with that.
You can't be better than a 3+.
Right.
So.
Do the Guardians get the Binding Oaths with that 6+ feel no pain roll?
Against you talking about the one where it's in the psychic
against
phase?
smite and stuff.
Is the Binding Oath the one that is only in the psychic phase? I didn't take very good notes.
They do get it, yeah.
Well, the Binding Oath, I believe you're talking about a power ability that we haven't gotten to yet.
Okay.
But what is the Aegis, the Emperor gives them the 5+ invulnerable save, and then the D6 feel no pain against mortal wounds in the psychic phase, and then the power, the ability of being a Custodes Detachment Battleforged, the Emperor's Chosen improves their invulnerable save by 1. So when you're looking at the option of taking the Storm Shield, the Storm Shield did go up by 5 points. So now you're looking at a Custodian Guard is 40 points base plus 10 points for a Storm Shield. And then you've got to buy the Sentinel Blade? Is that what they get?
Yeah.
For another 9 points. So that's a 59-point model versus a 52-point model.
Don't do it. Be efficient.
For one extra invulnerable save pip. Now, sometimes that's going to matter.
Yeah, I liked the Storm Shields before, but the fact that the Emperor's Chosen ability is there makes me question why it went up 5 points, because it's not as big of an upgrade. I could have understood it.
It does bring it in line, I think, with the other codexes, though.
Could you say, consider putting a shield on one dude?
You can mix and match the equipment in the squad.
So I kind of feel like that's a reasonable option.
So he runs out there in front.
Yeah. So the las cannons, he takes the las cannons, and the other guys, they'll take the bolt guns or the las guns or whatever they're being shot at with. I feel like that could be an option. I'm not saying that's the best option, but it's something. I just don't see myself making a full squad of those.
You don't have to pull the arms off of everyone you put a Storm Shield on. You can now You can now take that 5-man squad that you did make and make 5 new squads and have 1 Storm Shield in each.
I mixed and matched them a little. I tried it with like 2 shields and 3 spears.
Hey, Justin, what you were talking about with the Binding Oaths is the special rule on the Custodian Wardens. This is the first elite slot choice in this book. And what sets them apart is the Binding Oaths is roll a d6 for each time a model in this unit loses a wound. On a 6, the damage is ignored and the wound is not lost. These are 4 attack guys a piece, strength 5, toughness 5, hit in combat and shooting on 2s, 3 wounds apiece, 2+ armor saves.
Oh, those guys are stellar. I like it. And then
they get the axe also. So they get the Castellan axe, which has the shooting profile and a melee profile, and the Guardian spear, and then that extra the weapon, was a Misericordia that gives them the extra attack with that weapon.
Yeah. So these guys are going to be pretty cool because you throw a few axes in there and you're chopping down your big creatures. With that, you're hitting at strength 8, 3 wounds and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Castellan axe is +3 strength, so yeah, strength 8, with a -2 to armor save with D3 damage.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty big. I like that.
Yeah, and you can replace the axe with the spear if you want, which is +1 strength, -3 to AP, so a little bit on that, better on that side with D3 damage.
Yeah, I mean, I like diversifying weapons in those cases. Similar to like your Death Company loadouts or your Sanguinary Guard loadouts, or a couple fists, an axe here or there, and then there's a couple swords.
Their shooting profile is the same. It's the strength 4, -1 AP, damage 2 weapon.
Yeah, solid all around, man. These guys are pretty good.
The next choice you can get is the Vexilus Praetor in Terminator armor. And then just a Vexilus Praetor in regular old Custodes armor. I get a kick out of saying that.
Regular old.
Because it's just so blinged out. But
he's wearing like a flak vest or something. Yeah, it's just Custode. Okay, whatever.
The guy that sculpted that kit is like, this mother effer.
This is the standard bearer.
Ever again, dude. This standard bearer, I'm going to say it now, is going to be in every allied army that has Custodes. If anybody has Custodes and they're throwing them, they're splashing them in there with something else, and they don't have a Praetor, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, he actually gets the ballistic grenade launcher, and we'll talk about an upgrade you can get to that in a little bit. I think this is the last guy. We'll talk about this guy, and then we'll take a break, come back with Gav, and then come back with us talking about this. But the Praetor's standard has, from the Golden Light, during deployment, you can set this guy up in the Godstrike pattern teleportarium array. That's what all of them get is there. It's not, you put them on the battle barge for teleportation. This is the Godstrike pattern teleportorium array.
I bet you that thing has so much like gold, like just decoration. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's kind of dusty.
You're funny. You're funny.
This
You're a real funny guy.
Terminator armor, but this is the Terminator one, not the regular old one. So the guys in the Terminator armor obviously get the deep strike ability on their data slate without any kind of extra thing you have to do for that. So the regular old Custodes Vexilla, you can reroll fail morale test for friendly Imperium infantry and biker units within 6 inches of the model. In addition, when you add this model to your army, choose one of the following Vexilla for this model to carry. So then you've got 3 different options you can choose one from. But I don't want it to be lost that this is friendly Imperium infantry. This is not specifically Custodes.
Well, just for the defensor, the other ones are Custodes.
No, the regular base one that you get. This is what Vexilla do is reroll fail morale test.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then in addition to that, you choose one of these other things. And the Vexilla Imperius Adeptus Custodes models, other than vehicles, add 1 to their attack characteristics while they're within 6 inches of this guy. The Vexilla Defensor. This is Imperium infantry units have a 5+ invulnerable save against ranged weapons while they are wholly within 9 inches of any friendly Vexilus Praetors with this Vexilla.
Paul, were you going to put that in your army?
I'm thinking right behind some Death Company guys.
Now, hold on. Doesn't it say wholly within? Does that mean the entire unit has to be within that radius?
Invulnerable save are ranged weapons while they are, Units have a 5+ invulnerable save while they're wholly within 9 inches. So you got to take 2. And plant them on either side, and then you've got an 18-inch bubble in that middle there.
Yeah, I'm just going to give that the big thumbs down. No thanks.
I mean, 9 inches.
9 inches. That's 18-inch diameter.
Yeah,
To
that's pretty.
some people, I'm sure, but
that is a big bubble. 9 inches. It's not a 3-inch or whatever. You got a lot of range with that. And then the Vexilla Magnifica, your opponent must subtract 1 from hit rolls in the shooting phase for attacks that target Adeptus Custodes units within 6 inches of any friendly Vexillus Praetor with this Vexilla. This is not wholly within. This is just units within 6 inches.
These goobers stole my Dark Shroud. They stole my Dark Shroud, and I like it.
Yeah, and they can use theirs. Does the Dark Shroud work on Land Raiders?
Yes. Yes, it
That's
does.
a solid maybe, Chris.
It does. There's no. Wait, did you say that? Does a Dark Shroud work? Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But this works on. Yeah, because Dark
this
Shroud's
will
all
work
units.
on Land Raiders. So hey, now Ricky, you can field 2 Custodes Land Raiders just like you always wanted.
I was running 3 before, but that's because I didn't have any other options. Now I got options.
This is one of those things that works on. It works on Contemptors, which the Contemptor is not going to get the benefit of the extra invulnerable save, but a neg 1 to hit in the shooting phase is a big benefit.
5 up.
And if we do see Forge World work their way into this, I really want an excuse to use those amazing, beautiful Contemptors and whatever their bigger Dreadnought.
Oh my gosh, dude!
I wouldn't care if I lost every game. Those Heresy Contemptor Dreadnoughts, the Sword and the Shield one is that is one of the coolest models that's ever come out of
the
Forge.
Lance one with the last cannon on it. I've been
that beam of
daydreaming.
death. Yeah. Golly.
That's what a Dreadnought wishes it
about
was.
turning that into a light Dreadnought.
That's exactly what a Dreadnought wishes it was.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I could see. I don't want to be lost. That Librarian Dreadnought would be awesome on that frame.
Yeah. But on the Vexilla Magnifica, I think one thing you got to think about, like what are Custodes going to die to, and it's usually going to be just volume of fire. And the Vexilla Magnifica, think about what that is going to do for your units when Astra Militarum shooting at you. When a Mana Core is shooting at you and hitting on a 4, and then all of a sudden it goes to a 5. That right there is huge. So I think that's one.
Remember, this affects a lot of rerolls too. Your opponents must subtract 1 from the hit rolls. So it's You're not getting as many rerolls out of these things.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's really not a bad option in any of those. Those are all fantastic, and just depend on how you build your list, really.
Well, I do like
I like the -1 to hit the best, personally.
Well, yeah, it's good, and it's only Custodes, but it's not like you're surprised by how you built your list. You can, if you're including one of these, you would just make sure you always pick the best one for whatever it is that you're fielding. But then you've also got the ability to, I guess, kind of change it up a little bit depending on what you're fighting, and that the difference being the 3 different options here.
Well, never turn down good options, right?
Agreed. Guys, let's take a quick break. We will come back, speak with Gav Thorpe, talking about his new book coming out and some future stuff as well. And then we'll come back with us and we'll talk about the Allarus Custodians and then some of the other choices in this book.
Yeah, it's a fun chat.
See you in a minute.
Forced Narrative is brought to you by Dicehead.com. www.dicehead.com. Games, hobby, supplies, and comics. They have it all.
Hey guys, welcome to a very special segment of Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul. I got Chris Morgan here.
Hey.
And a very special guest, Gav Thorpe.
Hello again.
Gav, thanks for joining us again, man.
My pleasure. It's been a little while. I was looking at 2016 we last talked, so
forever ago.
It's been that long?
Yeah.
Well, in the pre-show, you told us everything about the Dark Angels.
Yeah.
And we know the truth.
That's right.
I'm kidding, of course.
You promised me you weren't recording.
You're right. Those secrets are still kept, and we do not know them. No one knows them but the Watchers in the Dark.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they'll be round your house if you let it on.
Right. Well, we're here to talk about the complete opposite of Dark Angels, and this is the book Ghost Warrior: Rise of the Ynnari.
Yes. Or technically the other way round, actually.
Rise of the Ynnari, Ghost Warrior.
Is the series and the book's Ghost Warrior. Yeah, I don't know. There must be something about the typography they used on the cover because everyone seems to think it's that. But yeah, so Ghost Warrior is the novel, and the ongoing series will be called Rise of the Ynnari. So.
Well, these characters have been pretty fascinating. I mean, the way that in the lore, we kind of got the snippet when we got the rule set for them a little while ago, but they are some Eldar/Dark Eldar that we had kind of really never seen a side of before.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing with the Gathering Storm and the new Dark Imperium and Ynnari is kind of is a great new direction, I suppose. It's one of those things that, particularly from a novels writing point of view, because the Ynnari cross over all the various Eldari kindreds, got to add out A and I now. They're a great way of talking about really anything. One of the things you want with characters in a setting really is ones with agency, and the Ynnari and Ivrain can go where they want, pursuing their agenda. So she can visit Camorra, she can go to any different craft world, she could even go to Exodus. She's got Harlequins, so she's a great. She and sort of like the characters around her are a great basis for a series of novels that I can use to explore other parts of the Eldari culture as well as the Ynnari. So this first one, Ghost Warrior, basically takes them to Iyanden and the ongoing storyline, I suppose, or ongoing relationship with Ariana, the spirits here.
So you got kind of a backstage pass.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think narratively as well, because it's part of this big mythic cycle, and supposedly the return of the raising of Ennead, God of the Dead, and all kinds of other cool fate stuff going on and things which I like to play around with, and I've been exploring particularly with the ongoing Phoenix Lord series as well. So yeah, it was right in my ballpark, as they say, in terms of what I like to write about.
Can you give us, because Ynnari, the concept, have been around for a long time. Can you give us a little bit of insight into their origins?
Well, I suppose, as somebody pointed out to me a little while back, because I sort of posted on my blog about it was 16 years ago was the first reference to Ennead that I put into a bit of what we call colour text, short fiction, in the Codex Craftworld Elder, or Codex Craftworlds, which was for 3rd edition 40k, which introduced all the variant army lists and stuff. And there was a little bit in there about Eldad Ulthran feeling this presence behind or within the webway, within what he called the Eternal Matrix. But actually, the idea has been older than that. The idea goes back to, there's actually a paragraph in the original Codex Titanicus, the supplement for the original Adeptus Titanicus game, which is 1988, or maybe I think Codex Titanicus came out in 1989, which talked about gathering the Spirit Stones and the gathered psychic mass of the spirits within the Spirit Stones to create a new Eldar god.
Was that
was
the start of that in Titanicus? I mean, you just these are things that have been around for forever that you just think are just kind of ever present.
No, exactly. It was there that it was first mentioned, and I think that wasn't a specific reference that I built on, but the Ennead idea kind of came after several ongoing conversations I had at the time with Jez Goodwin, who was obviously steeped in Eldar background and created a lot of it in conjunction with Rick Priestley and Andy Chambers particularly, but some other people. But so whether he was remembering that as well, and this idea of, but it arose out of the question of like, well, we know that psychic, the Chaos Gods are essentially gatherings of psychic energy, which kind of pulled together, and there's a whole, is the Emperor a fifth Chaos God and all kinds of other stuff. But actually, the idea that perhaps storing all these souls, all this psychic energy in one place would have an effect in the warp in some way, was what kind of stirred me to write that. And the idea that the webway wasn't just a means of traveling, but actually a way of linking together what I've started calling the Eldari Dominions, the old Eldar Empire, so that it was a communication system, but also maybe a psychic transit system, and it's part and parcel of how they used to reincarnate and all that kind of stuff. So it's more than just sort of like burrowing through the warp for travel. It's inherent in what it means to be Eldari. It's the webway to be linked together.
That's awesome. I think that the world has done a great job of still keeping that area mysterious and not feeling like you know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, there's definitely room to explore, and that's what you want as an author, is to, you can kind of delve into an area like the Webway or the Craft Worlds and play around, but not feel that you've kind of filled up the space for everybody else, or even, particularly, I like to think that, players get inspired by my stories and might create armies or scenarios or whatever, but actually there's still lots of room for them to carry on inventing their own stuff, so that even though I've kind of touched on Iandan, for instance, in Ghost Warrior, that's not the be-all and end-all of it. That's, first of all, it's just my interpretation, but also there's still lots of it for people to create their own armies or their own stories in all the parts of Iandan. And I haven't had space to explore because it's one novel.
Yeah, but I'm going to need you to bring back Beltan.
Someone get some super glue, fix that fracture that's going on right there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's super glue or maybe some PVA. I don't know what you need for it.
I don't know what cement. Works on a Raytheon. So where does Ghost Warrior pick up in the story of like where Dark Millennium is and where the 40k world is? Like in what we've seen from the advancement and things like codexes. Yeah. I know there's not a one-to-one with the novels, but where does this setting take place?
Well, it's sort of I didn't get into a specific part of the timeline because it just kind of drives me crazy trying to work out what it is these days. But essentially, there is an audio that I did, or a pair of linked audios really, which are called Hand of Darkness and the Eye of Night, which were both released as part of Audio Week in last year. And Eye of Night is Inquisitor Greyfax, and Hand of Darkness is Ivrain, basically. And essentially the two of them, quite separately, but for the similar reasons, get sent off or sort of requested and or sent by Gilliman to find these two artifacts that were linked to Abaddon and the Gothic War and everything else back in the old days. So, and have kind of reappeared both within the background, but also within the storyline. And so Hand of Darkness sees Ivrain traveling through the Garden of Nurgle, of all places, to a castle which is kind of one of the realms of Martarian, to steal the Hand of Darkness. And that takes place when, and I've not said they're necessarily concurrent, but they're kind of around the same time. So the other story has Greyfax meeting Gilliman while he's still on Terra, basically. So in that kind of window there. So that's when he kind of dispatches us, and it's all kind of part and parcel of what then plays out of or may not have kind of played out within his kind of battles with Mortarion and stuff like that. So Ghost Warrior follows on literally from the end of the audio. You don't need to have listened to the audio to understand Ghost Warrior, but in terms of the action,
that's where it fits. Though.
Pick up with Ivrain trying to escape from the Garden of Nurgle with the Hand of Darkness, basically. So this kind of Eldari story takes place somewhere at the same time that probably Gilliman's fighting Mortarion, which is like years and years and all the rest of it. So there's quite a broad sweep for me to throw these stories in without them really even touching the sides.
And this is a series. Where does this fit within the series of the books?
So yeah, Rise of the Ynnari, like I said, I mean, there's no hard and fast plan really, apart from there'll be at least a trilogy. The second one I've just sent in, which is called Wild Rider. So that obviously kind of deals with the Ynnari travelling, or at least interacting with same handcraft world and another character I invented ages ago, Nuathu Fireheart.
Right.
So, but hopefully, if they're popular, then they'll just keep going, really.
Cool.
And then and again, the jumps in time. There's no, there's no. Although they are chronological, so things that happen in Ghost Warrior have happened when we read Wild Rider. There's certain characters' developments have happened and things like that. But actually, there's no hard and fast kind of even in my head really of how much time's passed between Ghost Warrior and Wild Rider. There is some time has passed and more battles have been fought.
That's the great thing about 40k, right? Is that you can just kind of play with the timeline however you want, and just blame it on the war.
Well, I bet Eldar too. Eldar have their own. Eldari have their own sense of things. I'm sure that are different than humans. So why not?
Well, there's that as well. Yeah, exactly. That whole kind of timekeeping thing is completely different as well. And and so that, and also just with one of the things you've got to be extra careful of when you get something like Dark Imperium and there's changes happening in the central narrative, or a narrative happening in the center, to be honest, there's like, if there's to a greater lesser extent, if there's story kind of ongoing that we have to be aware of, where we set out, we have to be kind of careful not to try and, if they decide they want to do a supplement about the Ynnari or a release or something like that, I don't want to either A, make it difficult for the studio if they want to incorporate what I've done, or B, make it feel like my stuff's irrelevant because the studio have done a different thing, which,
that's so a tough balance.
It is, and it's tricky because a lot of this stuff has just been deliberately thrown in the air. Of like, well, we're going to set all these plates spinning, and some are going to fall down and crash, and some are going to keep spinning, and some of it the other authors or whoever are going to keep spinning for us. And without, they might have some ideas of how these might be ongoing, but the idea isn't to create lots and lots and lots of ongoing stories, but just to have moved the setting forward into a new place, a place of more war, which is where the Ynnari fit in. Again, now it's gone from essentially the craft worlds fighting the fires of creeping annihilation, the Dark Elder raiding and stuff, but they wouldn't really do much. But now suddenly we've got a bigger picture, really, a larger narrative then that we can set our stories again.
That's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Gav, is there's always been this sort of tragic fatalism to the way the Eldar have approached their lives in 40k. And now you have the Ynnari, and it's kind of like this first little spark of hope. Like, how does that change coming from like where you've written, the Storm of Silence, and you've dealt with the Craft World Eldar quite a bit in the past, and now you have this new kind of lens through which to see how the Eldar are interpreting their role in the galaxy. Like, how does that change between the different eras for you?
Yeah, I think it's one I want to be careful of, really. One of the things about Iliad, and it's kind of still there, I suppose, was that it was never going to be you get to save the Eldar. It's like there's still going to be, the idea was Iliad could not rise until the last Eldar soul had passed it. So basically, with their last death, the means of the Eldar salvation, it wouldn't save the species, but it would save their souls. And then Eldrad's basically tried to shortcut that by having Iliad come early. They're thinking if he could do it in a particular way that he'd be able to power up Iliad without every single Eldari soul. But we have to be careful, I suppose, that we don't portray that as a get out of jail free card. The whole point, I suppose, and one of the things I've kind of made of in Ghost Warrior and Wild Rider really is that the Ynnari aren't particularly welcomed. Things like Bill Tan happen. That there is still a price to pay for their actions on a cosmic scale, and one of those is that it's still up in the air whether they'll all have to die before Iliad comes back. But
Okay.
It's a little tragic.
And it's developed. Yeah, exactly. I've developed this bit more in Wild Rider than in Ghost Warrior, but it's kind of an ongoing thing, which is about essentially what is Inniad, but also what is an Eldari soul, and this idea that they used to they reincarnate. That it's always been there in the background. That back in the day, Eldari souls would be reborn into another generation, sort of thing, and then the fall, the coming of Slaanesh, stopped that. So in a way, this kind of metaphysical process has been short-circuited. So what Inniad kind of promises, perhaps, is even though if the last Eldari has to die for Inniad to be born, perhaps after that they probably become the reborn. There's all these kind of themes that the studio have hinted at now with the names of the reborn and all that kind of stuff that I'm trying to play off. So yeah, so they might still all die horribly in the way that we kind of envisage it, but ultimately they gain spiritual salvation. They're freed from the damnation of Slaanesh.
Right. That raises a lot of other questions too about the role of the other Eldar gods, at least the ones that are still there. The Laughing God in particular has always just been kind of cackling in the background. He's there, but we don't know much about him or his interactions with the world. And then we've got in the Garden of Nurgle, we've got Isha.
Potentially,
right?
Depending on one particular. Yeah. Well, again, and these are all really interesting ideas. Again, there won't be, I don't think we can, well, I'm certainly not in a position where I can ever write anything definitive in terms of that stuff. But certainly, again, it's a developing theme across the series that appears a bit more in Wild Rider, but this idea that the great cycles, all of the Eldar mythology and all of their beliefs is cyclic. It's a bit, there are other various, real world religions and things that don't necessarily believe in a beginning and an end, but the end of the world is just the start of the next world and things like that. So the Eldar have this idea that again, individually they're reborn as new Eldari, but also as people, as gods, as whatever, that what has happened before will happen again.
You think that's just a lie the old ones told them originally? They were just bred as some old world batteries?
Well, maybe. There is a possibility that that's true. I've done some fun stuff.
Just thought it'd be neat,
Yeah. Well, without trying to jump ahead a bit too much, because we're talking about Ghost Warrior, I suppose, but talking about series, is like the antagonists in Wild Rider are the Necrons, who of course are a race even older than the Eldari. So that gives us some fun, or gives me some fun, to look at some of that stuff actually about the prehistory of the 41st millennium.
That is pretty neat to get your hands on some.
What happened 60 million years ago?
Yeah, just some of that like pre stuff that doesn't get a lot of attention because there's no Primarchs, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, and I think. But it's actually quite essential to the Eldari story, which, again, it's nice in a way because, with the Phoenix Lords and with a lot of the stuff I've done before, everything kind of gets focused on, and with the Ynnari, again, it's all focused on Slaanesh and the fall, but actually it goes back even longer than that. Like I say, that it's nice to play with a history that's even older than, the whole point is them going back to a state. The Ynnari want to take them back to a state from before the fall, before the corruption of Slaanesh, when Eldari souls were supposedly pure, or this pure state, or whatever it is. Which kind of goes for it, yeah.
Old one batteries. I'm going to stick with that.
Mobile old one batteries, yeah.
Right.
That essentially the things they got plugged into got lost. Batteries that started, taking things far too seriously.
So, coming back to Ghost Warrior, you're dealing with the Yandingcraft world, and I believe it was in the Gathering Storm 2, they talk about Iriel having one of the swords that Inniad needs to incarnate himself.
That's right.
And they have always had kind of like this antagonistic relationship with the Tyranids. We'll put it politically that way. Antagonistic relationship. Are they the ones that are kind of bugging the craft world Yandin, and the ones that the Ynnari are coming to try and figure things out with? Or give us a little bit of an overview of how they're approaching this.
Well, on the Iriel front, really, going back to what I was saying earlier, because it's kind of at the end of the Gathering Storm narrative, essentially, it's revealed that the Spear of Twilight, I think it's called, isn't it? Is actually, in fact, one of the Crone swords. Oddly enough, I think it's number 3, I think they've found 2, 3, and 5 basically, and number 4 still missing, I think. Which is one of the things I did have a conversation with Phil Kelly, which said you couldn't have left them with 2 to find at the end. That would have been a bit better, because literally, because you find another one and it's like, okay, well, we're into Endgame now, which kind of closes off the narrative a bit. So I've had to kind of work around that a little bit as well. But then Iriel disappears and then that's it. We don't really hear anything else. We don't. So, but I've had to kind of, because of a lack of information regarding that, is why I kind of focused on Iana instead, because I couldn't find out what the plan. It's like one, I didn't want too many characters kind of like pulling away the focus from
name drops and all that.
Well, yeah. So essentially, it's just mentioned in Ghost Warrior that he's still off. It's kind of intimated that he's not very happy about what's happened. Really, that he's not. He's certainly, even though he's got one of these crane swords, he's not one of the Ynnari. Okay, he's, getting resurrected. Well, in fact, getting infected and resurrected because of their fault has kind of left him somewhat a bit peeved. So he's not
Corsair Prince and all that got his own idea how things should be done, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, an autarch, like I say, yeah, and one of a very old noble house, and he's had his own issues with because essentially the backstory even before it was a crone sword was that the Spirit of Twilight was draining his energy and all this kind of stuff, which all it fits. A lot of the stuff is nice, so you come back to it. And there's little snippets and things in the Gathering Storm background and in Ivrain's background, which are really cool, again, to play up on the mythic side. So like it's in the fight at the beginning when she's fighting Lilith Hasperax and she's left to die basically slowly, the person she ends up fighting with and is killed by, just at the point that Iliad, or rather Eldrad, kind of tries to cast these great runes, is a priestess of Morai Heg. So it's like, was that coincidence? Was it not coincidence that she was being, actually she was literally in death's embrace with a priestess of the goddess of fate and all this kind of stuff. So with the Iandan, really, it's more of a case of playing up the overlaps, I suppose, between Iandan being this kind of quite famous, essentially, part necropolis these days. And Ynnari being the reborn and the raiser of the dead, or so there's kind of a conflict of interest a bit there. But Arianna, who's very sympathetic to the Ynnari cause, so from within, sort of thing. So, but the basis of the story actually, so there's some bits that take place, and there's some. Well, one of the things about being an Eldari fan myself, is I write the stuff that I think will be cool. So there's some what I think are cool bits on Iandan, visiting the ghost halls and stuff like that. But then the larger part of it, really, the catalyst for the events is that a craft world that everyone thought was lost has been found again. This craft world called Zarathustra, which disappeared just after the fall, sort of like everyone thought it just went, they carried on running and basically disappeared beyond the rim of the galaxy or whatever, but apparently they didn't. And on Iandan, they've kind of essentially picked up the psychic signature of this craft world returning or coming back. And there's links to basically a very distant ancestral spur of Ianna's family. So, she's literally the last of her family. Even all the spirits are dead. The entirety of her family, except her, on Iandan, was wiped out. So there's this thread of hope that some distant relative or whole family may exist on this craft world. And conversely, for Ivrain and the Ynnari, because it's this ancient craft world, it supposedly has one of the oldest webway gates, which leads to a place called the Well of the Dead, which is believed to be the resting place of Eldaneshi's body after he was slain by
a very
Cain.
cheery place.
Yeah, exactly. So the tomb of Eldanesh, basically, and so that's why the Ynnari are quite interested in going there, because they think, well, if you're going to find a crane sword, that's a possible place.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
And what you just described is kind of like the teaser for the book. You didn't. You didn't give away a spoiler.
No. That's the
setup.
Yeah. And essentially, they join forces and travel there, and then hijinks ensue.
That's very interesting.
Some meddling kids and someone that may or may not be a monster.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so, Yeah, so it was quite nice to play around with Diana. I, and flesh out a little bit. When I did the audio, when I did the Hand of Darkness audio, I got to do a little bit really between, kind of setting up the relationships between Yvraine and the Vizarch, particularly, but also there's Millennial, who's an autarch who, during the Gathering Storm, joins forces with. He was actually an autarch of Biltan. He ends up joining forces with Ynnari. So they kind of form a bit of a central triumvirate of characters for the Ynnari for me to play around with, and they get, Ghost Warrior gives me plenty of room to explore their relationships and who they are. And it's quite fun with Millennial as well. So he's an autarch, but his second in command is an ex-Comoran Drakon. He's so, which is, again, you only get to do that with the Ynnari, is basically, the Suriani and Drukari, as they are now known, kind of having to work together, and they've got very different attitudes to warfare, basically. So we get to kind of carry on with our character stories and things as well, and hopefully that will continue to develop across the series.
Earlier you mentioned having more war in 40k. I didn't know we could have more war.
Yeah,
well, you did, but then realised you could.
Yeah. Right. And then here it is.
There is only war, and then there is only more war.
Hey man, I'm all about it though.
Yeah. Well, I think so. Again, it was a little bit, because we did something. When I was Warhammer Loremaster and we did the Storm of Chaos, and then 40k back at the time did Eye of Terror. But the idea was to make particularly the Chaos threat more present. Not a thing. Again, it's the difference between it's like it's always been 2 minutes to midnight, both in the Warhammer world. Obviously, the Warhammer world has gone well past midnight these days. But in 41st Millennium as well, it's like there's supposedly this crunch point at the end of the 41st Millennium. Lots of bad things are happening. It's the potential final last gasp of humanity, on all the rest of it, and just literally the beginning of the end. Well, actually, it's a little less the beginning and now ongoing, in terms of now Abaddon has broken out of the Eye of Terror. The Demon Primarchs have returned. I'm sure the Orcs will be wiring in ever greater numbers. The Tyrannid threat is even greater than ever before. All that kind of stuff. So everything's just been turned. 40k has always been turned up to 11. Now it's turned up to 11.
Well, it's got a strong narrative element to it, though. So none of this stuff, within the context, seems unrealistic. These are now believable, strong narrative threats, which will, of course, make us more excited about playing with the models. But, if I can take us out of the story element limit, the rules match up with that. So you're going to see all this played out on the tabletop, too. And I like that.
Yeah, that definitely. And one of the things don't have to. One of the things that I say to people when they sort of say, the background's changed so much. No, actually, none of the background has changed. There's more of it. The Space Marines you knew are still there. The Eldar you knew are still there. The Imperial Guard, everything was still there. There is now just more stuff added on that wasn't there before. None of these things actually replaced anything. And if you think about, the Adeptus Custodes have just been released and stuff like that again. So you go, well, they've not replaced a faction. They might have done, in terms of release slot, but, it's like Orcs are still Orcs, and Necrons are still Necrons, and everything that you had pre the Gathering Storm, pre the Dark Imperium is all still there. And if you want to play with those and write your stories or whatever, that's all still in the universe. But there are now all these new toys to play with, Primaris Marines and the Ynnari, and I'm sure, and everyone else will be getting lots of cool new stuff over the coming years.
As a writer, are you pushed more, by Homebase, by GW Prime, are you steered more towards to fit into these new narrative arcs, or do you still have kind of the freedom to explore things as you will, or do they now give you possibly, well, it could be the same amount, but potentially more things that have to remain true?
It's tricky. With more going on, then there's more that we have to kind of check against, I suppose, if we were doing stuff. So, it's a bit more like it's not like a shared narrative like the Heresy or Beast Arises. It's not like we're having to check everything we write up against a big book of what the studio are writing and stuff. And I suppose, and we're relying on the editors, I guess, to be across what the developments are, so that they'll be able to head off anything if we go in any kind of wrong direction. I suppose the directive for the moment, and was made clear before Gathering Storm dropped and we knew that new 40k was coming, was that for a couple of years at least, the 40k content would be in the Dark Imperium setting. which is not to say that we won't go, other than the heresy stuff, but, it's not to say that we won't go back and do older historical stories and things like that. But obviously with the new narratives and the new storyline, and the new kind of factions and characters and stuff like that, that they would be the focus of Black Library's output. Rather than going back and doing, say, the Bad Apple War or something like that. But those are possibilities for the future, just to bed the setting in, really, in the same way, that if when we did Armageddon, for instance, Third War for Armageddon, there was a couple of books that came out which incorporated the Armageddon background. But for me personally, I've not had anything which has kind of either prescribed what I've had to write. Again, because I suppose I've been fortunate enough to be the Eldar guy, and at the moment I've taken a break from Dark Angels.
That's great. I mean, as long as they're letting you be you and put out good stuff. I mean, that's it.
Well, I think that's and it's part and parcel of what GW have been doing has been to let Black Library be Black Library again as well. It's not another arm of the central studio publications thing that's kind of direct. There's always going to be overlap, and they're always going to probably want miniatures and books to kind of tie together. And if there's opportunities to reinforce a release of the novel, like Guy Haley's Dark Imperium novel fleshes out so much more of what's in the book and all the rest of it. So that's kind of complementary rather than fighting against it. Or, it'd be odd if there wasn't the Dark Imperium series. But on the other hand, some of that happened. I probably think there's probably a little bit more freedom now, because actually Black Library's remit is very much at the moment, or has gone back to being writing cool stories set in the 40k and Age of Sigmar universes. And so, my next novel is called Imperator Wrath of the Omnissiah. And although it takes place within the time frame of the Dark Imperium, it doesn't really touch on any of the bigger themes and stuff, because it's a very self-contained story. So I could write that without worrying. There wasn't like you need to make sure that you've incorporated this storyline, or you've had to mention this. I made a brief mention about the potential heresies of Belisarius Call. There's basically
that's a gold mine right there.
Ongoing within the Mechanicus of what's going on, rippling for years and years and years outwards of what he's done. Is it techno-heresy? Is it the Brave New World? And everything in between. And so it's going to impact on the characters, and it's a brief matter of discussion, but it's not even a theme of the book. It's just an acknowledgement of that's where it happens.
Well, it ties it in, and so it ties the mind that makes you're looking at a giant tapestry, but it's all related.
That's right. Yeah, that's the idea. It makes it. And similarly with some of the Ghost Warrior stuff, there's mention of the Primarch return in Gilliman and some ongoing stuff, but doesn't nail it to a date. Dates were just gone a bit even fuzzier now than they were before, but also just because that gives us freedom to write stories around it if we need to.
That's very cool.
In comparison to the way that the Horus Heresy is laid out, like the giant flowchart of where everybody is at what time and all that, I bet that feels pretty liberating.
Yeah, well, it's really nice. I mean, I've done okay over the last few years. 2 years ago to 3 years ago, Black Library's in a different place. It was part of this wider organisation called Publications, which kind of did codexes and novels and stuff, and it didn't really work very well, to be honest. But even during that period, for example, that's when I wrote War Beast for Age of Sigmar, and I did the Azrael novella, which I was asked to do. But it's always been a bit of give and take anyway. It's a case of, well, we would like you to write an Age of Sigmar novel, and it's got to be set in the Realm Gate Wars, and it was a very vague brief, whereas I know some of those novels were very heavily briefed. And similarly, Azrael was just we would like to do one of these Heroes of the Space Marines, or whatever it's called, the series, Masters of the Space Marines, I don't know, Legends of the Space Marines, about Azrael. Would you like to do it? And again, that was it. No, this is what the story's got to be, or anything like that. So I've been fortunate, I think, just due to being me, but also my longevity and my background with the studio and stuff, that I've always been left with a pretty free rein, even when stuff's been kind of to a brief. It's always been actually to a very short brief, and then they've let me kind of fill in the gaps myself.
Man, that's awesome. Ghost Warrior is available now in hardback and ebook.
Yes.
They can find that at the blacklibrary.com website.
They definitely can.
This is a beginning of a trilogy.
Yep, trilogy and maybe more.
Do they find the last Crone Sword at the somewhere in here?
Funnily enough, no. Funnily enough, in my first novel of the series, I don't end the 40k universe.
Right, good. Well, that's good.
Probably not in the second novel either.
That's good to know.
As a clue to what might happen, that's one of the things that doesn't happen. Yeah.
I appreciate that very much. I was worried.
Yeah, that was it.
I thought people might be interested, so I figured I'd ask the question. Gav, it is always a pleasure talking to you.
You are welcome. It's great to talk to you. If people want to find out more, they can go to my website, www.gavthorpe.co.uk. Sign up to my newsletter there as well for news on Wild Rider and stuff as well.
And you're also on Twitter, very active.
Twitter, yeah. Gav Thorpe Create on Twitter. I'm now on Instagram, actually, which is mostly hobby stuff, actually. I don't really do books and things on. That's just photos of toy soldiers and stuff on my Instagram account, which is cool.
So that's, you call it your Instagav account?
Okay. My Instagav account, yeah. And then I've got a Facebook page as well. So people search for Gav Thorpe, and they can like my page on there. I'm coming up to 10,000 likes on that, which is cool.
Fantastic.
So when I get to 10,000, I'm going to release an excerpt from Imperator. So,
oh wow, that's awesome!
Yeah, so
I do like how you interact. I mean, you're very interactive with the hobby, with people from the hobby, and people that talk to you and stuff online. It's really nice to see.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's where I'm from, I suppose, in a way as well. It's just what Games Workshop taught me to answer questions, and I just like it. I find it, it's an inspiration to me. If I didn't do that, then I'd just be a guy sitting in a room writing about toy soldiers, and actually that'd get dull really quick. But actually talking to fans, seeing what is exciting, continuing to be a fan myself. Now, I need that to continue to be a fan. I think I've become too jaded, especially since I left Workshop, which is like nearly 10 years ago now. If I was, cut off from the internal culture, I had to kind of tap into the external community instead, I think, to keep myself going.
I definitely recommend your blog for people who are interested in getting a little bit of an inside story and some fun, interaction on there. I signed up for your newsletter. I love following your blog and all the little posts you do on that, the little Q&As and things.
Well, we've just had the new submissions windows open now as well for people who would like to write for Black Library. Was announced. So I've got a few. I've got lots of writing advice posts on there, but a few specific Black Library ones. But I'm going to be updating those over the next month or two. The closing date for the window is not until end of April, or beginning of April. So people got quite a while. But yeah, so I'm going to be refocusing on that a little bit over the next couple of months to see if I can help some people along.
Fantastic! I'll be following that along. I've put a submission in a couple of times, but every time I feel like I get a little bit better, but I'm always looking to improve.
Yeah, well, that's still my attitude now. It's like everything I write, hopefully I've learned something else. I've put something else into the characters or the storytelling or the prose, and never stop learning. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they haven't asked me to write anything, so I'm pretty sure my curve's a little bit higher than yours, but I'm going to keep trying.
Exactly. Well, yeah. As I mentioned to somebody on Twitter just the other day, nobody publishes the story that wasn't submitted.
Right. So, exactly.
That's actually great advice.
Yeah. Great. So best of luck with that.
Dude, Gav, again, thank you very much for the time, and it is always great to talk to you. You said so. The next book you have coming out is it a part of this, or is it? Right? It's not.
Technically, the next one out is Ashes of Prospero.
Oh,
which is my Space Marine Conquest novel, which is a whole other conversation we can have if you want.
Can we catch up with you about that soon?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll be catching up quite a lot over the next few months if you want, because I've had a little run of stuff basically. So I've had Ghost Warrior, and then I've got Ashes of Prospero out soon, and then Imperator's out a month or two after. I think Imperator's out in April. So yeah.
You heard it here, everyone. Gav's going to be a regular on the show.
Yeah, we look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night, man.
FTN is brought to you by Bell of Lost Souls. Check out www.bols.org for the best daily hobby articles on the web.
Hey, everybody, we are back. Got the whole crew still here with us. Going to be talking about the Custodes, Adeptus Custodes Codex, jumping right back into the Allarus Custodians.
It's a very alluring topic.
These guys are exciting.
Well, they have a 2+ armor save. They are the Terminator guys.
So they're basically like, aren't they bigger than Centurions? Don't they look like bigger than Centurions?
I think they're probably about the same size as Centurions, if you ask me. But I'm only going by scale of reference here, they've got a picture of them next to some what seem to be Death Guard figures, and I know that those are bigger. But it's hard to judge, especially when they have like their armor that goes above their head, and then they've got the top knots on top of them.
Yeah. So basically, it's like they looked at it and said, if we made the heads proportional, this is what Centurions would look like.
Fair enough. These guys can get the grenade launcher, which I don't know if we covered it before. The base grenade launcher is Assault D3, Strength 4, Neg 3 AP with 1 damage. They can get the Castellan Axe or the Guardian Spear, and then the backup dagger weapon. These guys have the special rule, Slayers of Tyrants. When models in this unit pile in and consolidate, they can move up to 3 inches towards the nearest enemy character, even if it is not the nearest enemy model, so long as they finish this move within 1 inch of an enemy unit. So you still have to consolidate towards an enemy, or end your move closer to an enemy, but you can move in the direction of a character, even if it is not the closest enemy model.
This is so big for the Hero Hammer that we're playing now, with all the buffing lieutenants and captains and the guy with the bell or whatever the
grind
flavor.
Your way. That's Dolores, by the way, Justin.
Who?
The guy with the bell.
His name's Dolores?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Because it's Dolores. Get it?
Oh, okay. Dolores makes sense. Dolores.
Well, but what's nice about these, though, is you have an ability to go strip out those buffs, though. You're going to dig in. You're going to get into
grind
combat.
Your way to it, yeah.
Yeah, and then so now you're crippling your opponent's game plan. That's huge. This is one of those things. Like, this is better than I can shoot characters with 10 wounds or more or whatever. Like, this is like something that we have not seen anywhere else yet.
The neat thing about these elite guys here in the Terminator armor is that they have an additional wound. They have 4 wounds apiece, and they get an additional attack, 4 attacks.
Huge.
Yeah, I really like these guys, especially because it's never the Magnus or the Mortarion that you're worried about taking out when you're sniping characters. It's those guys, they do their things, but they're not safe, right? They're not safe from anybody. It's the little guys. It's the little
the guy
the
giving
little
the changeling or something.
Right. It's the little ones that you just can't seem to just get. And these guys can drop down, and all of a sudden, they're outside of their safe space.
Well, they got a plethora of stratagems that are specific to them as well. And so, like when we get to those in a second, it really shows how you can use this unit in a different way that's very unique to them and very similar to other things like lone wolves and things of that nature. But a real exciting unit. Point cost a little high. But they are in essence each their own character with the wounds and everything else and their damage output. So I love them.
These guys split off from their unit to form individual units
with a stratagem.
With a stratagem.
Unleash the Lions.
Lions, yeah.
Yeah, it's a 2 command point stratagem, and you get to split the unit up to basically have however many in the unit they all become a solo operator at that point.
And they are 70 points base.
That's before weapons, right?
That is before weapons, and the Guardian Spear is 12. The Castellan Axe is 14. So it's not like you're spending a ton of points on those weapons, but you are spending a lot.
Yeah, I almost look at them like taking a unit of 3 assassins. Is almost how you want to look at them, because they're essentially going to be doing that. So,
dude, these are like 3 Space Marine lieutenants. I mean, that's they're like 3. They're HQ models essentially. They have the stats of HQ models.
Yeah. Heck, I wouldn't even say lieutenants. I'd say like captains. I mean, they're beasts.
I mean, 4 wounds, 4 attacks, and that's without the extra dagger you can get, or the sword or whatever you can give them. And then they got the Aegis of the Emperor, which gives them that 5+1 if you're taking them in a 4+ invulnerable save.
Yeah,
so they don't have a stock better invulnerable save of like a 4+ or anything.
They don't. Now I think that they didn't put that in here because they get the 5+ invulnerable save automatically, but they're wearing Terminator armor.
Right. Okay. So what I think it bears mentioning the difference between the axe and the Guardian Spear. I know we talked about this on the pre-show, but I don't think that we talked about it in the show yet, where the Guardian Spear means that they're swinging at strength 6. And that's great. Strength 6, AP -3, D3 damage.
But the axe, that's strength +3, and yeah, it's only AP -2. But think of the characters that you're going to try and kill with these guys. How many of them do you need the AP -3 on that aren't already getting a 4-up invulnerable save?
That's a good point. And your strength 8.
And your strength 8, so you are wounding most likely on 2s.
Yeah, I could see the axes finishing off Magnus or something like that, though, because like you said, when are you really going to need the -3 on Magnus, because he's going to have the invul? So the -2
any
is going
character.
to
Heck, a Lord Commissar has an invulnerable save.
Oh God, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's honestly the -3 is redundant. So I'm a fan of the axes on it, because you're going to have the strength on those big targets. You're going to have the strength to cause the wounds. Either the spear or the axe, like against the commissar, either one of those is going to wound on a 2. But when you got to take off 2 or 3 wounds to finish Magnus off, that axe I think is definitely the way to go.
Or some mana cores in the backfield.
Yeah,
oh my God!
Now,
I'd
Paul,
love to get one of these next to Paul's mana cores.
Paul, let me ask you this: how do you feel
That's it, I'm off.
Custodies? How do you feel Custodies should handle the high toughness things like vehicles? Because it's with vehicles that I feel like the axes, despite being strength 8, are a little bit worse, because most vehicles have a 3-up save, so they're going to be saving on 5s now. It feels like the damage output is a little underwhelming.
Well, having that strength 5 is pretty good. You're going to be wounding lots of stuff on 3s, but you're still going to be wounding most stuff on 5s. You know, you're just not. It depends on what you're killing with the base, but so getting the bump to the Guardian Spear of +1 strength 6, you're still wounding vehicles on 5s.
Yeah.
I'd rather
anything that's tough to 7. Yeah,
right. I'd rather go up to be wounding them on 3s.
Don't they have a stratagem that lets you add 1 to your wound roll?
I believe so. We'll get there. But I don't know if you want to put yourself automatically in a position of needing command points for these guys to be doing what their basic job should be. But it's nice to have. That's absolutely sure. I'm thinking, though, that for vehicles, I'm going to want to be wounding them on 3s instead of shooting for 5s. Because even with 4 attacks, let's say 4 attacks hitting on 2s, they're all going to hit. But needing 5s automatically means you're probably going to get 1, maybe 2 wounds. Mm-hmm. Wounded on 3s, you're getting, 3 wounds through.
Yep. And they'll save maybe 1 of those. So
you're better off forcing the save, yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and that was kind of my big question, because I feel like I want to put the axes on these guys.
Chris, go with your heart. Think about it.
I'll go with my heart, because I'm Astartes.
Both hearts, because your whole army's going to have those spears. Take those axes. That's
a good point. And these guys also get their grenades. Every single one of them comes with that grenade launcher. You have to purchase it, but it comes standard on this guy, which is the Assault D3 Neg 3 AP. So strength 4. That's the only kind of drawback here. But we'll talk about a way to bump up one of those for characters.
That's in addition to the weapon on this the axe and the spear too. So they're 3 dudes of those putting out what D3 3D3 plus 6 shots basically. So
the spears or the axe is rapid fire 1 plus assault D3.
Yeah, I'm assuming I'm within 12 inches. These guys are never not going to be within 12 inches. So, you're putting out 6 plus 3d3 shots at strength 4. So that's something right there. I mean, they're not just close combat beasts. They can actually clear out a little bit before they get there too.
Well, I feel like, especially with their stratagem that lets them target the characters
in the shooting
phase. If you're looking at a bunch of light little characters, like say Primera Psychers or something like that, you could feasibly have one dude focus on one model and kill them.
Well, and how many times has a character limping around with 1 wound or 2 wounds or whatever, but you just can't target it because of the character rule?
All the times.
These guys are going to do a much better job, in my opinion, than scout snipers at wiping out characters.
That's crazy.
And for the same point cost, really.
Why are they so expensive? I'll never understand it. How did scouts become the most
It's
expensive
only 90
troops?
points for
It's
5
so much.
sniper rifles and camo cloaks.
So
and
much.
they will wound somebody one time. In a game.
it's 90
It's
points
90.
for half wound.
I'm not taking them, but I feel like it.
He's sitting here defending them, but he's like, I ain't going to put them in my army.
No
But they're
camo cloaks. I've got
Yeah.
in my Vegas army coming up. I've got 10 sniper rifles.
I'm a fan of the Bolter Scout.
I've got 10 Bolter Scouts. I couldn't decide, Ricky. So they're both in there.
One of each. I think you Blood Angels players should just go bolt, pistol, chain, sword.
On everybody.
Everybody in charge.
That's a valid strategy. All right, back to this. The Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought. It doesn't get quite all the weapon options that like the Forge World Contemptors get, but you are able to replace its multi-melta with a Carries Pattern Assault Cannon, and it comes equipped with a Dreadnought close combat weapon, multi-melta, and combi bolter.
Yeah, so basically you're only replacing the one arm versus dual wielding your choice of guns.
It does not get the Aegis of the Emperor, but it does have a 5+ invulnerable save.
Oh, they took the verbiage of Aegis of the Emperor away from it. Okay.
So it doesn't get the save versus psyche powers, the psyche power mortal wounds. But
doesn't it have unyielding ancient?
Roll D6. It does get it does get the D6 6+ to ignore injury at all. Period.
Okay.
So at least it's not unnecessarily redundant, like Dante and Sanguinary Guard.
Yeah, and it's not an infantry or biker, so it does not get the improved invulnerable save.
I'm not going to stop bringing that up until it's fixed. I think I've talked about it on the last 4 shows.
We're just going to have a segment. We'll just put a segment at the end of each episode.
What's Dante doing today?
Where Chris just lights a candle and prays for Dante.
All right, now here's these next sexy beast, the Vertus Praetors. These are the jet bike dudes.
And these are elites, or they're not fast?
They're fast attack, yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said they were elites. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Oh no, these are the next.
Okay,
the next dudes.
Next topic.
They're not.
Okay.
They are fast attack. Movement 14 inches. Hit on 2 for weapon skill, ballistic skill. Toughness 6. 4 wounds apiece. 4 attacks apiece. They can come with the Hurricane Bolters or the Salvo Launcher that we talked about before, and they get the Interceptor Lance, and they can even get that backup sword.
Now this is where your chaff clearing comes in.
But before we talk about that too, these guys also, correct me if I'm wrong, always advance 6.
Yeah, if you advance, you can advance the full 6.
So that's a 20-inch move.
Turbo
No
boost.
needing to roll the die.
Yeah, so that's pretty big to factor in when you're with your movement.
None of their weapons are assault weapons, though, are they?
They aren't, no.
Yeah, because they got the Hurricane Bolter and Missile Launcher.
Yeah,
is that heavy?
I don't know how often I would be advancing with these guys, but I guess if you're trying to get to an objective or something, it's nice to know they have. The point value on this is that each Vertus Praetor is 80 points base with a 3 to 10 man squad as your limits there, and then the Hurricane Bolters would be 10 points like we talked about. So 90 points. The Interceptor Lance is free. 90 points apiece for these guys.
So what I'm seeing is like units of 3 of these, right? Even at 24 inches, that's 36 shots within 12 inches.
Well, you
hitting
just
on
get one
dudes.
Hurricane Bolter.
Yeah, it's not 2.
It's rapid fire 6, so it's
Okay, so
It'd
it's
be
it's not
18.
twin.
Yeah.
Twin. Okay.
36 within 12.
Okay.
If it was
Still.
still Hurricane Bolters, there would be no other unit that I took in the army. It would just be all bikes.
And captains on bikes.
I'm actually
Spearhead.
considering if I would take the bikes and not just more captains. How many wounds is a biker?
4 wounds apiece.
4, and the shield captain is 7 on a bike.
Yeah.
Oh, huge.
I
Toughest.
see Captain Lance riding around with these guys.
I'm seeing Captain Lance is about to ride around with First Lieutenant Lance, and that's my bike squad.
Wouldn't those be Lance Corporals?
Hang on a second.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
the first one I approve of.
Hang on a second. So, I mean, those are those guys. They're 90 points base, like we're just talking about, and they look amazing. That gives them points right there. But I think they're pretty effective. Like, there's going to be stratagems that do let you deep strike. I don't know that you need to, though, with a 14-inch move and then a 24-inch range. So what is that, a 38-inch effective threat range with a 36-inch better a threat range?
Yep. And that's 12 wounds on 3 dudes that have a 2-up save and a 4-up invulnerable save. who are also objective secured.
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about too. That's the big thing about these guys. First off, they're putting out good shots. They're putting out ridiculously strong close combat attacks, and they're going to shoot halfway across the table and get those objectives. With how slow the rest of the army actually moves, having these in your army to grab objectives is fantastic, I think.
Well, let's also not forget they have the fly keyword, which means they can fall back and still shoot.
And don't forget, they can go right over all those nice infantry squads to get to the gooey innards behind them. So that's fantastic.
And your strength through weapons are wounding these guys on 6s.
Yeah, good luck with that.
The Venerable Land Raider is the last entry for units in the Codex, and it's a Land Raider.
Paul,
the Land Raider with a 5++ that hits on 2s.
There we go. Let me defend this thing a little, just because it was, one of the 3 units I had in my army before this Codex came out.
On a 6+.
There we go. Let's talk about it. First off, it's a Land Raider with a 5-up invulnerable save. It's got Power of the Machine Spirit, so it cares not if it moves and fires. A 2-up ballistic skill, so you're shooting off 4 las cannons on a 2+. If you're near your shield captain, you're re-rolling that. So you got las cannons that are almost guaranteed to hit.
I do not believe this has the 5+ invulnerable save anymore.
What? Okay, then don't take it. Yeah, no.
All right, I think I heard the sound of glass shattering on Ricky's computer.
Yeah. Power of the Machine Spirit, Smoke Launchers, Unyielding Ancient, and then Explodes are its abilities. It can transport 5 Adeptus Custodes infantry models, which is important because it doesn't say 5 of this, 3 of that, or whatever. It's just 5 Adeptus Custodes infantry, and that's it.
Okay, that's it. I take it back. Take more bikes, guys.
Yeah, it doesn't have the Aegis of the Emperor rule. I'm with you. I don't know that I can get behind taking the Land Raider unless you're just feeling like you need to push these guys across the table. But I think they're survivable on their own.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just with all the shooting out there and with how many points you have invested in those, I have a hard time paying 350 points for
Land Raiders,
without
Land
the
Raiders
5-up.
right out. You have enough options with these guys that I don't think you need to worry about the Land Raider.
Yeah, and let's be honest. When you look at a Land Raider versus looking at those jet bikes or those new Allarus, come on, which one looks cooler? Just grab the cool-looking models, put them on the table, and make pew-pew noises.
These guys...
Well, that's the thing, though. We're not going to be pew-pewing without our Land Raiders. That's my big concern about holes in this army. If we're looking at it from a mono codex perspective, is the las cannons on that Land Raider are just about the only decent multi-damage long-range shooting that you've got in this book.
Well, what about the missile launchers on the bikes? What strength are those?
They've got like a Melta version.
They do have a Melta
24-inch,
missile, which is not bad. The Melta missile is strength 8 d6 damage with a -4 AP.
So 24-inch range, so within 12.
It has the flak burst, which is strength 7,
and that's anti-flyer. But
well, a unit of those. Just throwing this out there. A unit of those, if you deep strike them in, you can come in 9 inches away, so you're within Melta range. You could get some work done with that.
These are heavy weapons, so -1 to hit.
Oh, I'm only hitting on 3s. Oh,
look, I'm just putting it out
there. Suddenly, no, I know, but suddenly 3s seem terrible. It's like I'm only hitting 66% of the time. Well, ain't worth it. Not taking it.
When you're only rolling like 3 dice.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's a good point. Really. Gosh, one of these guys couldn't strap a las cannon to themselves, and I don't know,
just carrying around.
These dudes
like
are
a pistol.
He just has it like shooting at what's his name from G.I. Joe shoots the 50 cal, just carrying that thing
around.
You
think about Roadblock.
Roadblock. Thank you. Goodness, my childhood was completely escaping me.
So we
hopefully we can get some roll stuff in there that will have that shooting that that those cool Custodians grab tanks have.
Oh, there are a bunch of stratagems in this book. There are 3 pages worth of stratagems and 2 pages worth of relics. So a lot of options is really what we're going for. We've talked about the ones that let you deep strike, and it works you get to put them in the Godstrike pattern Teleportarium. I'm going to talk about a quick one, and we're not going to cover all these, and we're actually recording on an off day, so I'm having these guys pull double duty, and I really appreciate you guys coming in and doing this on this off day. But there's a 2 command point stratagem called Victor of the Blood Games.
Katniss Everdeen.
Yeah, use this stratagem when you set up an Adeptus Custodes character from your army during deployment. You can reroll 1 hit roll, 1 wound roll, or 1 save roll for this model in each turn. Our tragedy has struck just as I was praising the guys for coming in on it. Was actually recording late on a Friday night. The internet decided to die on us, as you can probably tell by some of the breakups in the way they were speaking. I really apologize for this. We will be back with another show as soon as absolutely possible. Next week, definitely, but when there might be something we release in between our normal release schedule to cover some of the more stratagems and the relics and whatnot, because there are a ton, as you may have heard me mention, there are 2 pages of relics and 3 pages of stratagems. These guys have a lot to offer in a toolbox capacity as far as the Adeptus Custodes go. I apologize for wrapping this up short and not finishing out the episode, but the technical things being what they are, we are left with this. But thank you very much for listening, and we will see you guys very soon.